Hi, I'm Brad Favreau, and welcome to another edition of Believe in Biddeford. You know, there are many private and nonprofit organizations around Biddeford that do tremendous work for the city, augmenting city services. And one of those programs we have in place right now is the Adopt a Park program that is run and administered by the Heart of Biddeford. So today with me I have Delilah Poupore, the Executive Director of the Heart of Biddeford, as well as Holly Culloton. Holly, you are a community garden organizer, is that correct?
Yes.
But you're heavily involved with the Adopt a Park program.
Yes.
Good, good.
Have been for a while.
Good. So, Delilah, let's start with the very basics. Mm-hmm. What is the Adopt a Park program?
Adopt a Park is a program to augment city services. That was a good description of it. The idea is getting people involved in committing to their neighborhood and improving the parks. And the idea is if our parks are cared for by more people, they're more accessible to more people, Holly will describe in detail more, I'm sure, but when cigarette butts, kind of start to pile up in the park, it's great when those can be cleaned up and removed, and it just encourages other people to keep the parks clean as well and just more useful, usable.
And the people who actually are doing the volunteer gain a sense of not quite ownership, but responsibility over that little plot of land. Yeah. And it really, I'm guessing, heightens a sense of community.
Absolutely. You see people who, kind of feel like this is their neighborhood, but once they get involved, and Holly has some pretty incredible skills, and I've seen other adopters do the same, just as you're in there shoveling or sweeping, raking, and you say to somebody, hey, come here, and she'll get them to get involved right there. And that's kind of how this all started. Heart of Biddeford has a design committee that looks at the aesthetics of the downtown, which, and beautification can cover so many different areas. But Holly herself was working in the parks and realizing, the city did not have staffing to do sort of that down and dirty pulling weeds that it takes, or pruning, things like that. And she's the one who just approached the parks or
Parks and Recreation?
Public Works mostly.
Yeah. In the city.
And she really started the Adopter program.
You started it. Mm-hmm. Wow. When did that happen?
In 2012.
2012. So you have a little bit of
6
history
years
behind you.
Yeah.
That's the Heart of Biddeford, however, administers it, correct?
Yeah, that's right. We just have to make sure that Holly is an extremely steady, ongoing kind of person, but with volunteerism, people do, have more time one year, less time another year, or could move on. And so we kind of make this commitment to the city that we're not going to start the program one year and drop it. And we also have an AmeriCorps Vista who works in our office, who helps with the outreach to different groups and kind of tracking the hours that people spend, because that's important for us to be able to know how many volunteers were involved and how many hours they spend. It helps, convey the importance of volunteerism when we can track that kind of info.
Right.
So Holly, how many volunteers do you have working with you right now?
For head count, I don't know that I could provide that for you, but we do have some very active groups. We have Rheinmetall Defense Contractor here in Biddeford has a group. We have Spurwink. Creative Work Systems has adopted a park. We have Creative Work Systems, Biddeford High School's Jobs for Maine Grads, which is fantastic. They started out with like gangbusters this year. It was just wonderful. Brad Heel is his name, or Brian Heel, excuse me, is the teacher's name, and his group was very enthusiastic. And they take care of 315 Main Street, the little corner park at the corner of Main and Elm Street.
Yep.
We have individuals, Leah Schaefer, who takes care of Chevenel Park.
She does a great job.
She does a great job, really great job. We have Joanne Brooks and myself. We team up and take care of a park together, and then I also take care of the small Cannon Plaza Park. And then we also have UNE, who's been involved from day one. in taking care of Mechanics Park. So their College of Osteopathic Medicine, they usually have quite a good size group every year. So,
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's really people from all walks of life,
All walks of
business,
life, yes.
institutional organizations, and individuals who just care and want to make a difference.
That's right.
And just to add to that, if I can, those are the ongoing adopter groups.
Right.
And then sometimes there are special events that
Cleanup
happen.
events.
Cleanup
Yeah.
events. And we'll just put a call out
Yeah.
publicly, and a whole bunch of people will show up on a Saturday and
Yeah.
help in Clifford Park or Mechanics Park. Or like in the spring, the middle school has this day of service. And there are 600 middle school students who are doing a community service project for the day, and several hundred of them are put into different parks with different adopters, kind of being the site captains, and they get that experience for the day. And University of New England also has some that they send out students, for like a day of service or service opportunities. So
And we
it's
also have the United Way Day of Caring, too.
that's right.
Yeah.
So it's just different
yeah.
ways for people to even just get a taste of it, even if they aren't full-time adopters.
Right.
But do you, as the organization that administers it, deploy different people to different parks, or does a group actually, quote unquote, adopt a park and they show up weekly, regularly, whatever that may be,
Yeah.
and they take care of it with very little oversight? Is that how it works?
They even sign a contract before they start, and
Okay.
there's a brochure that kind of tells them what to do, but Holly or another designee will show them around first. There's a lot of people who don't know the difference between a weed and a plant.
Right.
I would be one of those people. So, you get a little training first. And then there's a monitor group. I don't know if you want to describe how that works to just kind of keep people on track.
Right. Well, Joanne Brooks and she's been involved since day one as well. And Ray Parent, who works with Jeff Demers at Public Works,
Right.
he also sits on our monitor group. We're down to, really a core group of 3 right now. But what we do is we get together monthly and talk about the issues in some of our parks and some of the needs, and check in to see how our adoptive park groups are doing, and we do periodic walkthroughs and see how the parks are looking, and report back to Public Works with any of our findings. Like if there's a dead tree or some shrubs that need to be dug up or that sort of thing.
And do you also advise the adopter that perhaps this could be done a little differently, or so it goes both ways. It goes.
We do.
Your communication goes to Public Works as well as to the actual adopter of the park.
We have a really nice kind of collaboration between HOB, AAP, Adopt a Park, and the city.
Yeah.
And so, for instance, if we do a big cleanup in the spring or in the fall, or if an adopter group has a cleanup on a Wednesday afternoon, and they have bags of debris that they've collected, they just leave them on the side of the park or on the sidewalk, and then we call the Public Works Department, and they come and clean it up, pick it up, and take it away.
Yeah.
It's a really nice relationship. If I notice something in my travels through one of our parks, I can call Ray Parent and say, I've discovered this, or there's some graffiti here, and he takes action. Or if I find there's a dangerous situation, like for instance at Washington Street School Park, there was a little bit of an issue over there just recently, and I reported to Ray Parent, Carl Walsh from the Rec Department, and George Monteith from the Codes Office. And so they all come together and report in and check in with each other, and we take care of it. So,
Is there one park in particular that's just difficult? And is there one park that's just a breeze?
Well, I think you got to say Mechanics Park is difficult only because it's huge.
it's huge.
It's very large.
Yeah.
Yes.
So there's often several adopter groups, and it also kind of flows into the river walk, from the Mechanics Park side across the street. So there are several groups operating there, but we could always use more groups, and they could adopt a section.
And not really several groups right now. We're down to Rheinmetall at Riverwalk and UNE at Mechanics. These are 2 very big parks with lots of components, lots of landscaping, and we really need 2 more groups for each of those parks. So we're really, I'll put the call out right now that if there are people out there, if there are organizations out there that would like to do some community service and volunteering, have them get in touch with us.
Yep. Last time I was over at the Laconia Plaza, which is tucked behind Building 15, between Building 15 and the river, I noticed it could use a little bit of work. Is there a group that's dedicated to that particular, or is that being taken care of by Public Works?
Public Works, but could we put an adopter group there
We
if there
would
was interest?
definitely, we could use one there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because that Laconia Plaza, I mean, it's a beautiful little space for different events. I think they even have weddings there sometime, don't they? When they landscaped that, it was fairly complex. It was an intricate landscaping, and within the first year, the weeds started to take over. I mean, this type of landscaping, you really have to have, either at least once a week attention to that. So, yeah.
Now,
And we could use a group.
as your role in Adopt a Park, do you really spend your time cleaning up, raking, weeding, or do you provide plants, do plantings, whether it's annuals or an actual tree? Do you get into that level of work?
Joanne Brooks and I, at both Washington Street School Park, which is on the corner of Washington and Jefferson, and the Cannon Plaza Park, which is at the corner of Green and South, we've added perennials and annuals to that over time. And what we ask our adopter groups to do, if they want to make some changes and add some enhancements to their park, they would run it by us first, and then we would present it to the Rec Commission, who has to really give the final okay on anything that's done in the park.
Okay.
Whether it's removal of a shrub or cutting down a tree or planting flowers.
Okay.
So.
And that's how the contracts work.
Yeah.
That people are asked to do those basic weeding, pruning,
Yes.
sweeping, raking might happen, and then reporting if they see some kind of ongoing problem or graffiti. And then if they do have ideas, some people have said, we want to add a bench or paint a mural or add flowers or trees, something like that. And then there's just that approval process from the city before they can.
And generally speaking, it's a pretty easy process. I don't think they've ever really said that you can't do that.
Yeah. And did you say that goes through Ray Parent?
No, through our Adopt a Park monitor group, and then we check in with, they have to, or with our help, we go to the Rec Commission, city's Rec Commission. Okay. And then they have to approve it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it goes with your monitor. Any changes would be requested of the monitoring group, and then you take it to the Rec Commission. Got it. Right. Okay. What are some of the program's big successes? I mean, you've been in working at this for 7 years now? Mm-hmm. What's a big success?
Do you mind if I do a small success first?
No, absolutely.
Because I think it's the little opportunities, the stories that I've heard from Holly about, it's both the Adopt a Park and community gardening, where, like, for instance, kids walking by. And they're not necessarily, heading off to an activity at home. They'd be on their screen probably or something.
Probably.
And I just love I've seen Holly do it, and then hearing stories of it about how you go like, hey, and just, grab somebody over. And then pretty soon they're eating, blueberries off the vine with you at the park, or trying the strawberries in the kids' garden. You can probably describe, situations.
Well, one thing that I was just totally thrilled about recently is with the Jobs for Maine's grads classroom at Biddeford High School, one of the students, I had her in our Adopt a Park program back when we first started it. So she was little. And this her name is Caitlin, and she would dive under the shrubs, and all of a sudden you wouldn't see her. She'd dive under the shrubs, collecting trash from underneath the shrubs. And she was there every single time I was out there at Mechanics Park wanting to help, and just really, truly devoted, loved what she was doing. And there she is as a high schooler, and said, "Do you remember me?" And I said, oh my gosh. And she was like a foot taller, you know. And so we just reconnected, you know, and she's still just, you know, loves doing the work and gets down and gets her hands dirty and, you know, gets the work done.
Yep.
And just has such pride around it. So,
And that's
really,
that kind of community building part of it isn't something necessarily that you can call as this big success and here's
No.
statistics that go with it. It's more people's quality of life that changes because they get involved, get more acquainted with nature around them, meet some other person who later can become a mentor in some way. And there's also these opportunities for people working together who maybe wouldn't meet each other. There's some master gardeners who are all folks who are retired, working with, you know, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6-year-olds in the kids' garden up on Pearson's Lane. They probably wouldn't have an opportunity to find each other in the world, but here they are growing stuff, and they do talk about life or what makes them giggle or where they grew up and things like that because they're working together on a project. So I think gardening has that kind of way of sewing people together that's really cool.
No pun intended.
Yeah, really. Thank you.
Another thing I wanted to mention, and I forgot to include their name in this, is Maine Pretrial. Maine Pretrial, which is the drug court, they have adopted Canopy Park and Pearson's Lane Playground and Faux Ave Court, which is all in that Bacon Street neighborhood.
Yep.
And they are loving it. And they reach out to me all the time for other volunteer opportunities. You know, once they're done with this, where can we go from here? Yep. So I directed them down to Mechanics Park. And so they're a new adopter group this year and just thrilled to be doing it. So.
Now I think I've counted 12 parks that you guys are involved in, plus or minus maybe. What parks need attention the most right now this season?
Mechanics.
Mechanics?
First of all, we're getting ready for the big River Jam Festival in September.
Yeah.
So that park could use a lot of work right now.
Yeah.
We should probably try to organize a big cleanup day prior to that event. What's the date of the event?
September 20th and 21st, yeah.
So anytime between now and that festival date, we could definitely use some extra tender loving care in that park.
Okay, and
then Riverwalk. You know, Riverwalk is one of these things that's become kind of a really important asset for Biddeford along the river, and it gets overgrown very quickly and can look really unsightly and uncared for, so we could use a couple of extra hands taking care of that park too.
That, you know, Holly's somebody who notices plants and how things are growing and weeds, and
it's a problem for me. It really is. It is. It's like, I'm always.
But I definitely wasn't. I'm not a master gardener. I wasn't raised to really see, you know, the difference. But once you go in and you see a park that's been worked on, or you're the one who's cleared out this whole bed and now see the plants really shining, it does convey that this place is cared for. And there's all kinds of research that shows if you live in a place that's cared for, you feel more cared for, and you take care of that place more. I used to work on college campuses, and in the, I guess, 70s, you'd build these kind of ugly cinder block dorms, throw, you know, hundreds of people in it, and then you were sort of shocked that they were throwing couches out the windows, you know? But then they started building the dorms to look more like residence halls, more like a residence and homes, and they found that students not only took care of the physical objects better, but they took care of each other better. So the part of Adopt a Park is just showing people that this is your home. We care for the home you live in, Biddeford, and we want you to care for it as well by jumping in and participating, or just by coming to enjoy a little nature near you. There are so many health effects of being in nature, in a garden, that, you know, in this stressful world, we need those health effects.
yes,
I have a couple of other little stories that I'd like to share, and these are things that have just stuck with me and just are very heartwarming for me. So one of them just happened the other day. I was at Washington Street School Park, and over in the far corner of the parking lot, where we have a tree planter, Joanne Brooks and I have planted a few perennials in there, and it's become kind of a hangout for some local homeless people.
Now,
And
describe the location of this.
Washington Street School Park is at the corner of Washington Street and Jefferson.
Okay.
And it's actually
Right there,
the
tucked
site
in
of the
by the
former
parking
Biddeford
lot.
High School. There
Yep.
was a high school there. Beautiful old building that was torn down to make a parking lot. So we have now this little pocket park with a bench, some plantings, and then a little flower garden there that we've added a lot of perennials to. And in the far corner of that parking lot has become this hangout. So it's like right at the end of a little alleyway between Alfred and the parking lot.
Mm-hmm.
And so there were two people sitting over there, and I've seen both of them, and I've had conversations with both of them. And I'm not going to name their names, but I went over there when Joanne and I were doing a cleanup in there the other day, and all around them was just lots of cigarette butts, litter, little alcohol nip bottles. There was down in the little ditch, there was evidence that somebody had slept there. Okay, you could see the body imprint and everything, and a lot of cardboard and clothing and stuff like that. So I had a conversation with them, and I said, gosh, there seems to be a lot of cigarette butts around here, And they were both facing the building, so they were facing away from the parking lot. And so they both said, oh, I know, every time we come here, it's always trashed, And I said, well, what should we do about that? And they looked at each other, and, I said, how would you feel if I brought a broom over? Would you guys have time to help us clean up the cigarette butts? So I brought my little yellow broom over. And the gentleman started sweeping up all around him. He never got up, but he stood there. He sat there like this, and he swept up all around him, and he was very methodical, and he picked up every little last cigarette butt around him. And I gave him the dustpan, and we picked it up, and we put it in the bag. And I said, I just thanked him. I said, you know what? It doesn't take a lot, but when we work together, we can make our places look nicer. And I said, how do you feel about what you just did? And they looked around and they really liked it, I felt really good about that, making that connection. And so the next time I see him, he knows my name, I know his name, and he's down on his luck. But for a moment, he made a difference and he felt proud of it,
Well, I have heard, and this is slightly off topic, but I have heard over the years that, if you're feeling blue about something or down, just go do something nice for somebody else and you will immediately feel better.
Yeah.
And it sounds like that's an example that Holly just gave.
And I had one more thing to add, and then I'll turn it back over to you.
Yeah?
So this is another one from last year. There was a gentleman, his name was Chico, and this was over at the Cannon Plaza flower planter. And I had planted a tomato plant in there, in the garden bed. And I got to know Chico just because he was always walking by when I was out there, and he would stop and make a comment about the flowers and stuff. And I said, well, do you like cherry tomatoes? And he said, I love cherry tomatoes. So he would stop by and pick up the cherry tomatoes. And then he started bringing a gallon, a water pitcher with him to water the garden bed, and would sit on the bench and look at the flowers.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and you don't really think about, community gardening and adopt a park as this like social change thing, or she's kind of a Joni Appleseed of gardening. A lot of people drive by and judge somebody who's sitting by the side of the road or something like that. And if you instead go, well, those are my neighbors. I'm going to go talk to my neighbors, and maybe I'll do something together with my neighbor. It does. Even if it doesn't mean a thing to them, it means a thing to you, that you have a relationship with another person who maybe has a different life than you right now, and that matters.
It does.
So I'm guessing that in addition to volunteers, you could always use funds, additional funds. How can somebody who, for whatever reason, scheduling or whatever, not be able to actually do any volunteering, if somebody would like to donate $10 or whatever, how can they do that?
Heart of Biddeford, as a nonprofit, can accept donations, and people can
earmark
it for a particular park. Flowers in Mechanics Park, for example, or something like that, or just to support the Adopt a Park program or to support Heart of Biddeford generally, for example. So any of those could be done online through our support button on heartofbiddeford.org or contacting us in the office on Main Street there.
Yeah, why don't you give us your phone number?
That would be,
Phone number is 207-284-8520.
Okay, one more time.
207, right? 284-8520.
8520, good.
And we're located right on Main Street next to the awning for City Theater.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people do come in, probably every week somebody different comes in and says, how can I get involved? And some people want to join a committee, some want to help plan an event, and others want to get dirty in the garden and help out.
Okay, so top of list right now is Mechanics Park. In anticipation of the River Jam Festival coming up in September.
Yeah.
So I myself would like to be a part of that.
Good,
Yeah,
all right, great.
yeah.
We know where to find you.
You do know where to find me. Let me broaden this a bit. I'm doing some reading over the last week or two, and I just read a study that was published by a global organization, and forgive me, I don't remember exactly which this organization was, a think tank of some sort, that suggested planting 1 trillion trees around the world would combat the worst effects of global warming. And we hear global warming, the term global warming, it's a problem, we've heard it for years, but you know what? Me, as an average citizen, I'm like, well, I could walk to work occasionally. It's a long walk, but I could do that occasionally. But I'm thinking, what else can the average guy do? What role does planting trees have in Adopt a Park? Is that something that we could incorporate into the program that already exists? Or perhaps perhaps we have enough trees already, I don't know, in the parks, but could we plant a few more trees in Biddeford?
yes.
Yeah, and Project Canopy, aren't they always looking at that? The
Project
trees?
Canopy, yes. Yeah.
There's a group that's is it a city commission? It's part of, under.
I think it is a commission.
They get
Ron
some
Gogan,
funding
yeah.
to bring in trees and to focus on trees a bit. Have trees gotten planted through Adopt a Park?
Yes, I think Carl Welch is a really good guy to ask about that. I think they've planted trees recently in Rotary Park.
Yep.
And if a tree comes, in fact, we had a tree get cut down at Canopy Park in the Bacon Street neighborhood, and we need to replace that tree. And we actually have one waiting for us in the nursery, the tree nursery here in Biddeford. So they do get replaced, and new trees are planted.
Okay.
But we could plant more. I mean, there's a lot of parks with a lot of open green space that, like for instance, Williams Court Park, the newer section of Williams Court, is all just pretty much lawn, and there's a couple of trees on the outskirts. But
a few more trees would be
a
welcome
nice.
addition.
Yeah.
Yeah. Carl Walsh is the director of the Recreation Department, and you can find his contact information on the city website.
Yes.
Yes.
But I think that could be a cool addition to the middle school Day of Caring, because they want to keep continuing this. They've done it twice, and they want to make it an annual thing. So if we start looking
Sure.
into that project now, maybe there are certain parks or certain areas that the city knows more plantings need to happen, and we could
Okay.
get some, because everybody who had the middle schoolers volunteering with them last year said that they were hard-working kids ready to jump in, and they really liked, having their projects where they could see the fruits of their
Right.
labor, so I think
Catch
tree
'em
planting
young.
would be great. Yeah.
Catch them young.
Exactly.
Yeah. One other thing, and we touched on this, another recent study has indicated that 2 hours a week, just 2 hours a week in open green space
Yep.
has been found to be very beneficial to your health. And I'm just wondering if you have any thoughts on that. I mean,
Well, speaking for myself.
whether you're working in the park
right.
as a volunteer or just hanging out, enjoying the sunshine and the shade of a tree.
Yeah. We planted, in fact, Dale Pearson from Pearson Nurseries donated a tree for the Pearson's Lane playground. And prior to planting that tree, there was no real shade, for kids to get out of the sun when they're out there playing. And so we planted, I think it was about a 9-foot tree at the time, and now it's probably 20 feet, and it'll grow to 65 feet at maturity.
Do you know which species?
It's an ash, and I can't think of which ash it is, but it is a beautiful tree. And we tucked the picnic table underneath it. So now families can sit out there and with their kids and get out of the sun for a little bit.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's
That's
really
very
great.
nice. Okay, so
And there's a young woman, young family over in that neighborhood that I have known for a number of years now. And she has 4 kids now, 3 little girls and a new baby boy. And they are outdoors all the time. She takes them on adventures around town, down to Clifford Park, down to Mechanics. They go uptown. They go to the music concerts in the park in the summer at Chevenel. And they thrive. They're really thriving young family, and I think it's kind of in their blood now, in their nature, to be out there,
Right.
outdoors.
Right. Those stories are so great to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, Delilah, thank you very much for joining us. Holly, thank you so much for explaining the program and what we can do. And again, contact the Heart of Biddeford if you'd like to volunteer or donate money. And I will let Delilah give the website address and the phone number one more time.
Great. Please contact us at heartofbiddeford.org. That's our website. My email is director@heartofbiddeford.org. And our phone number is 207-284-8520.
Great. Holly, any last thoughts?
I would like to say a couple of things. Whether you have an hour a week, an hour a month, and you want to get out there and help beautify our beautiful parks, get in touch with us. We also have a Facebook page, Biddeford Adopt a Park, and of course the Heart of Biddeford Facebook page as well. So,
Great, great.
Thanks.
Well, thank you
Thank you.
both. And thank you for joining us today on Believe in Biddeford. Stay tuned soon for another edition. I'm Brad Favreau. Thanks again.